My name is Jasmine Bidwell, and I'm part of Group 7, which will be covering free-range and pasture-raised animals. Our group is for free-range and pasture-raised foods. So I'm going to be reviewing a little bit of background and history on free-range, pasture-raised animals. So the actual definition of free-range refers to food from animals that have access to outdoor spaces. It also refers to animals who have free access to graze and forage on food. So below we have two pictures. We have a picture of cage-free animals. So these animals are held under a building, but they're still able to roam around freely. We also have pastured animals, which are able to roam around outside. Next, we'll be covering a little bit of history. So raising free-range animals was a common practice in the 1800s. This was a good way for the animals to get all the necessary nutrients and exercise in the day. The new idea of cage-free came around only after the discovery of vitamins like A and D in the 1920s that allowed farmers to practice this method safely. However, animal husbandry can be dated back to the Neolithic Revolution and refers to a branch of agricultural concern with animals that are raised for meat, milk, eggs, and other products. This includes day-to-day care, selective breeding, and other concerns with raising of livestock. So now we're going to go over the difference between cage-free and free-range. So cage-free refers to animals that are housed in a building or enclosed in areas that allow for unlimited access to food and water and provides freedom to roam. So this was the picture that we showed in the first slide where all the chickens are held under a building. We now have free range. So this is basically the same definition, however, with the exception that free range animals have access to the outdoors. This doesn't mean that the animal is completely able to roam freely. A lot of the times the animals are confined to an area. So now we're going to be talking about some ethical aspects. So I'm going to be covering Proposition 2. So Proposition 2 was known as the Prevention of Farming Animal Cruelty Act. It was passed in California on November 4th, 2018, with the 63% vote in favor of the proposition. Now, this proposition was put in place to add a chapter to Division 20 of the Health and Safety Code, which prohibited the confinement of certain farm animals in a manner that doesn't allow them to turn around freely, lie down, stand up, and fully extend their limbs. This prop became operative on January 1st, 2015, which required all farmers have their farming operations to be implemented and up to date by this date. We also are going to be covering the 28-hour law of 1873. So this law states that animals cannot be transported by rail, carrier, express carrier, or common carriers for more than 28 consecutive hours without being unloaded for 5 hours of rest, water, and food. This was amended in 1994, and it dealt with the resting periods of livestock and other things like that. It provided information for feeding, watering, resting, and transporting livestock.
Hello, my name is Noelle Palmer. I am going to be talking about Animal Welfare Act of 1966. This was passed by Lyndon B. Johnson. This regulates the treatment of animals in research, exhibition, transport, and by dealers. This describes the minimum standards and treatments for animals and for human use. Next, I will be talking about Proposition 12, established in 2018. This proposition established minimum space required based on the size of the animals. Next, I will be talking about the cultural and sociological. The United States lacks enough land for all animals to be free-ranged. Free-ranged animals also require more water and feed because of an increase in exercise. Next is higher costs. Producers have to spend more time with cattle getting them up to market weight. Detrimental to the environment, 1 kilogram of beef produces more greenhouse gases than 155 miles traveled by a car. Lastly, fourth-generation Oregon rancher Corey Carmen, she ran a 5,000-acre grass-fed beef cattle operation, stating that it is a key element of restoring the ecosystem. Carmen states, agricultural livestock are this incredible tool in promoting soil health, she says. The longer you can manage cattle on pasture range, the more they can contribute to the ecosystem regeneration. According to the organization like the Savory Institute, returning cattle and other ruminants to the land for their entire lives can result in multiple benefits, including restoring soil microbial diversity and making the land more resilient to flooding and drought. It can boost the nutrient content and flavor of livestock and plants. And because grasses trap atmospheric carbon dioxide, the grass-fed system can also help fight climate change. But it does require more land to produce the same amount of meat. Next, I will be talking about the current events going on with food animals. In Proposition 12, this raised the cost of dairy and poultry because of new facilities needed for animals due to the new requirements. Secondly, there was a ban of cage-free eggs by Tesco. Due to this double standards, they will be banning non-cage-free eggs in Asia and the United Kingdom, which already has cage-free eggs. Lastly, in 2025, Michigan calls for cage-free eggs. Michigan is signing a law becoming the 5th largest egg-producing state. This requires farmers to make the switch to cage-free production.
Hello everyone, my name is Drake Bourbon, and we're going to be reading the 4th slide. The first point is there are many advantages to free-range / pasture-raised animals. From eggs to exercise, raising animals in an environment with more space is beneficial to the animal and the product it produces. The second point that our group made is 2 important advantages of free-range / pasture-raised are exercise and nutrient availability. If the animal has room to roam, they are exposed to much more exercise, which in turn makes the rate of obesity much lower in a given population. And you might think that obesity isn't a big problem, but it actually is a big problem. The third point is when animals have the ability to graze and forage for food, they gain much more nutrients than store-bought feed. For example, in chickens, when they have the ability to graze and eat bugs in a force field, their eggs have much more nutrients. And we'll see that in a second in the pictures. So this is just a couple pictures. And the first one, you can kind of see the chickens just grazing in the field. They're looking for bugs and things like that. And you can see that they have a lot of room and they're not confined. In this second picture, you can see the egg yolks. And there's a very clear difference. You can see the caged yolk is very pale, and you can just see all the nutrients that the chicken has taken up in the free-range yolk. And then there's some eggs on the third picture. And then there's kind of this graph right here. It's called Navigating the Labels, and it's a guide to buying eggs. And it just kind of shows like the worst kind to get are conventional and the best kind are pasture raised, and there's some in the middle like cage-free, free-range, certified organic. But you can see that pasture raised is natural fields or pasture, most space for natural behavior, and that's when you get those really dark, almost orange yolks, which is the best. This slide is about pastured beef benefits. The first picture up there, you can kind of see the cow and just all the cuts of meat. You can see the cows grazing on the right, and they look very healthy. They're eating grass. On the bottom right, you can see some organic beef, and that's just how the labeling would come. You can see it's organic. It's a different certification. And in the middle, looks like there's 2 steaks right there, possibly New York's. Right here it says pastured beef benefits. You can see it has less fat, not a lot of the like marbling. There's higher levels of heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids. Higher levels of linoleic acid, which reduces heart disease and cancer risks. higher levels of vitamin E and other antioxidants, which of course is good for the human body. And if you see in the bottom left, that looks like a big, nice Texas Longhorn there. The next slide is the informed opinion. So this slide is going to be a little bit about our opinions. It's called informed opinion, and it says, based on the information gathering in this presentation, we feel that free-range or pasture-raised animals are not only healthy to consume, but also a healthier environment for the animals. Although the transition into only free-range or pasture-raised animals will be expensive, in the end it will be healthier for the animals and the consumers. And that's kind of a consensus that our group came up with, but we're going to go into a little bit more detail of our personal experiences. So for me, I kind of grew up a little bit of a farm environment, and we always just had the pasture-raised chickens. And for me, I could always tell a difference between the eggs, just like with the yolks and how they tasted compared to store-bought. And that was like enough to me just to put like all my faith in that. And I mean, having good beef is always good, and I think the quality of the meat and just like the animals' lives in the end make the product much better.
My name is Jasmine Bidwell, and some of my informed opinions on whether animals should be raised free range or pastured. So my opinion is that animals are human beings, so they should be treated as such. We shouldn't be keeping animals in small confined areas, limiting them to certain times frames that they could go out in the open, they could drink and eat. I feel that animals are basically human beings and they should be treated as such. Also, with that saying, once animals are treated correctly and farmed in the correct way, the likelihood of our foods becoming better and tasting better are higher. So when animals are raised properly, they're happier and healthier, which means that they'll taste better. From opinions, my parents have a farm where we raise chickens and birds. When you are out there interacting with the animals, giving them time and attention, they're more likely to grow bigger, live longer. So the lives of these animals and the meatiness of chickens, cows, things like that would be greater if they were just treated properly. From a consumer's point of view, I feel that I'm willing to pay a higher cost for animals that are raised free ranged, even though the costs to produce them this way are higher and the cost to purchase these types of products for me would be higher. I feel that it would be a healthier alternative than to eating foods that are processed and contain other chemicals.
Hello, my name is Noel Palmer. My opinion is that for free range, it helps the animals to be happier, it saves money, it is healthier. The reason that it is healthier for an animal to be free range is that the animal has exercise, fresh air, and calms feelings that helps them to be healthy. This helps the animal to have fresher food. So for a chicken, it helps the egg to be fresher, and for beef cattle, it helps the animal to build muscle in the meat. So when it is produced by manufacturers, there is more fatty content within the meat, making it more pleasurable for the consumer. Next, there are fewer insects. So this helps keep down the ticks, mosquitoes, and other critters that are affecting the cattle. Then there is better production. So this helps to increase the quantity of products coming out from chickens and cattle. Lastly, I'm going to restate that it also helps build the ecosystem by benefiting the soil where the animals are staying, so it helps with the nutrition content. Finally, in conclusion, our group is for free-range and pasture-raised animals because we believe that altogether it helps the animal be a lot more happy and healthier, which is more beneficial for the production and the quality people receive. Lastly, in order to get this information, we use references from articles that help to explain how production is made for free-range animals, and we also had another slide that detailed